Hey, nerds. So, going to talk about Jordan Peterson, who loved to criticize, making a ridiculous claim in his debate with Destiny a while ago, in which he said, remember he made this ridiculous claim? I think hospitals on balance do more harm than good. And now he makes this insane claim about modern medicine. And Destiny basically just keeps asking him questions, and Jordan Peterson gets angrier and angrier and angrier as he always does nowadays, especially in that recent Jubilee debate that everyone's seen, right? So let's get into the clip here.
Because the leftists should have been the ones that were most skeptical about the bloody pharmaceutical companies, and they jumped on the vaccine ban.
Okay, like right there, though, until recently, the lefties were the ones skeptical of pharmaceutical companies, and the lefties were the anti-vaxxers until all the COVID shit, and it like politically completely reversed itself for the most part. And people are only skeptical of pharmaceutical companies now, like conservative people only are, because they became massive anti-vaxxers, and you can pretend to not be that, but they were. But that's why they're critical of pharmaceutical companies, and there are plenty of reasons to be critical, but he also oversimplifies the issue and all that shit, of course.
Bandwagon in exactly the same way that you're doing right now. Vaccine bandwagon in exactly the same. Most skeptical about the bloody pharmaceutical companies, and they jumped on the vaccine bandwagon in exactly the same way that you're doing right now.
Pharmaceutical companies have helped us tremendously throughout the...
Right, there we go. Fine. No,
modern medicine
think
hasn't?
so. No.
Pharmaceutical, he basically, you hear him just say that pharmaceutical companies have not helped us tremendously. They've caused a lot more harm than good, like he was saying about vaccines, right? Let's go back to that.
I don't think
You're
so.
just wrong.
I think they're that you're doing right now.
Pharmaceutical companies have helped us tremendously throughout the...
Right, there we go. Fine. No,
modern medicine
think
hasn't?
so. No, I don't think so.
You're just wrong.
I think they're
You're
utterly
completely wrong.
I see.
He just said modern, he just confirmed
modern medicine has not helped us tremendously. Modern medicine has not helped us. No.
You don't think that the pharmaceutical companies who dominate the advertising landscape with 75% of the funding are corrupt?
Only in America and the US. Remember, a lot of people know that it's illegal for some pharmaceutical, well, not pharmaceutical companies specifically, but for drug companies to advertise their drugs in any country other than America and Australia for some reason. And yeah, he's talking about the corruption with pharmaceutical companies, of course, but obviously a lot of that has to do with insurance companies, like in terms of prescription drugs, for example, marking up the prices artificially because the middleman needs a cut, right? That's why the American medical system is all fucked up. And he's talking about that specifically. So, and pharmaceutical companies don't advertise. I don't know what he's talking about there. Like, you can say that there are, media are sponsored by Pfizer and shit like that, but that doesn't mean that they have a financial incentive to be biased toward that, for sure. And people who were like pro-vax or whatever got way too far overboard too. But the anti-vaxxers were just fucking completely wacko. But anyway, if we're just talking about pharmaceutical companies themselves, like, yes, they're a lot of they control a lot of what drugs get approved, but also what a lot of people who criticize these wacko anti-vaxxers have clarified many times is that it's still the case that 90% of drugs that are submitted to pharmaceutical companies get rejected. So there is a financial there is a financial conflict there in terms of your incentives, but it's still a case that 90% of them get rejected. So it seems like it's, you have to be critical of systems like this, but it seems like it works fairly well for what its purposes are.
Corrupt is a very broad...
No, it's...
Do you think that
corrupt with a tinge of malevolence?
Do you think
willing to
corrupt with a tinge of malevolence?
You could perhaps say that about pharmaceutical companies, but I mean, and it's not like they're all noble, but all of these institutions are made up of individuals, and some of them are going to have noble goals. Some of them are going to be malicious. Probably most of them are going to be somewhere in the middle, just doing their jobs and all that kind of shit. So he acts like,
oh, everyone who works at pharmaceutical companies, every single person is an evil demon with it, and they're all evil and corrupt and trying to poison us with evil vaccines and all that kind of bullshit.
extract money out of people by putting their health on the line. You don't believe that?
Do you think
that happens in America too? And remember, also, this has been brought up a million times. The vaccines, if I remember or understand correctly, I could be wrong about this, but I think they were free in America, weren't they? They were definitely all free here in Canada. And then a lot of these people who say, "Oh, modern medicine bad," like Jordan Peterson fucking had his life saved by modern medicine. He had to go to Russia to do all this fucking alternative medicine shit to get over his benzodiazepine withdrawal because he was like preaching about self-improvement and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and shit. And meanwhile, he was taking antidepressants and he was phenomenally depressed. And then he got addicted to them and he went through withdrawal and almost died and was saved by a hospital with modern medicine. And he made that claim before.
I think hospitals on balance do more harm than good. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I could also not be wrong.
Basically, essentially said the same thing about not only pharmaceutical companies, but all of modern medicine as a whole. So he's a fucking idiot with these massive oversimplifications. I can't believe that people think he's smart. He's a fucking idiot.
think that we get effective drugs from pharmaceutical companies?
Not particularly.
Okay.
Because the leftists should have been the...
No, we don't get particularly effective drugs from pharmaceutical companies. The vaccines and nothing else. Not all those steroids that Joe Rogan takes. Not all those benzodiazepines I took. Not all of those drugs that I took to save my life. Nope. Oh, that's bullshit. Pharmaceutical companies and drugs are useless. Yep, let's go back to the Stone Ages.
ones that were most skeptical about the bloody pharmaceutical companies. And they jumped on the...
Oh, it restarted here. So, yeah, obviously, as usual, Jordan Peterson is fucking full of shit, and he's an idiot. Like, he used to be more interesting when he would talk about psychology and philosophy and kind of weave them together and talk about various different religious archetypes throughout different religions, like in his book Maps of Meaning, for example. But now he's just like a fucking boring, partisan, grumpy old Fox News grandpa with a conservative opinion about everything. Not only I'm skeptical of like a reasonable criticism of vaccines, like, and pharmaceutical companies and drugs and all that shit. Like,
I think we should be more careful about the studies with vaccines or something like that. Maybe there's some corruption and stuff.
But then he goes way far overboard and just goes,
not only vaccines, but pharmaceutical companies, drugs, and all of modern medicine do more harm than good.
Yeah, that's Jordan Peterson's fucking stupid opinion.
Modern medicine does more harm than good. Definitely.